in the home, and all of the money goes back and forth depending on who wins. But the chances of fraud in these are phenomenal. Like,
we see a ton of it on social media. This game was rigged. That game was rigged. This moment was rigged. And it sounds
you know who's
like
saying it? The people who lost.
Salaries.
They had to hang him. They had to put him right in, a football player, they had to put him right in the end zone and let everybody go tackle him once. He has to stand there naked. You got to do something to really stand out.
The Behind the Lines podcast is proud to be sponsored by SXBet, the world's most sophisticated crypto betting exchange. Millions traded every month with 0% fees, all on the chain. Never fight for a withdrawal. Your money is always yours using advanced wallet technology. Fair, transparent, and limitless. Bet on SX.
Welcome in. It's Behind the Lines, purifying sports betting, winning with SX. I'm Shane Pace here, Gosu in the house on today's show, NFL playoffs, baby. New segment, Carrots and Sticks. You're going to want to stay tuned for that. Drake's being sued. And we've got an expert guest on all things fraud in sports betting. Very fascinating stuff from this guy. So stay tuned for him coming up later towards the end of the show. John Pace, how we doing? Guys, coming off of a monster weekend at In-Play Live. Let's go.
Yeah, one of the biggest... definitely, I think the biggest of the year, like of the season. Definitely the biggest of 2020.
Definitely the biggest of the year.
But I think like fiscal year, I kind of view as like August when preseason starts, like the start of a new fiscal betting year. The biggest of the year for me. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And guess what? It all started here on the pod with John's calls. The guy is running hot, man. So let's just recap. 2 weeks ago, you called Navy minus 6.5 against Cincinnati. Well, that came through for us. Big winner right there. You called the Lions +3 against the Bears, winner. You called the Steelers +3.5 against the Ravens, winner. Unfortunately, Texas Tech money line didn't come through. But John, you've also been posting for everybody who's in the In-Play Live community, in the Discord, you've been posting your pregame calls, and you're racking up the units over there too. So, dude, you are just on a heater.
It is. I've had the best pregame, like Pace said, the August through the end of the year here, like that. I mean, just the best stretch I've ever had. It's been pretty wild. Betting some like NHL money line dogs that are winning like over 50%, where I think the average price is like +140. Pretty crazy stuff. I don't know how long that'll continue, but you'll take it when you can get it, because there's stretches where you don't win for months when you're betting pregame. So it's just got to take the variance and enjoy the good times.
I think too, sometimes as a listener, you could, take the little segment of where John gives us a couple calls and you can talk shit about him or back him or whatever the case may be. But I think from the standpoint of what we do as a community, we're all about live betting. We are a community. We built relationships. There's crazy success stories. We just had, I believe, our 28th person eclipse 7 figures in profit in the community.
Shout out Eggs. Way to go, Corey. Nice work, buddy.
On Sunday night. But I have to just say, one of the membership alone, which would require a pro membership, I believe if you are the right size bettor, just John's futures are worth it, which typically are released in August. So NFL this year, John on Sunday was sitting there with a sweep in his hands. He only lost 2 futures this whole year. And I'm going to say what those 2 losses are. The Niners to win the division, which you could have hedged easily because they came down to an at-home game against Seattle to win the division. And the Bucks to win the division. Those were his only 2 losses. And the Bucks at one point, I mean, they were like minus 10,000.
Yeah, that was crazy.
But all his futures combined for the NFL this year, he had a 47.7% ROI. On his futures for the year. And he's got it looks like, I don't know, like 30 pending NBA futures that usually releases somewhere around the beginning of October. But last year he had a whole whackload of futures in the NBA that came through at a 25% ROI. The previous season's NFL futures were 28% ROI. So he's had 2 losing college football seasons in a row, but the losses don't even begin to compare to the gains overall as a whole with all of his futures. So if any of you guys are listening and think like, hey, you know, this live stuff is just too much for me, and you do have a decent sized bankroll, you link up with us and collect those futures throughout the year and just focus on that. And when you're in our community, you actually have your separate channel for those alone. So you can mute everything else. And once every 2-3 months, when John fires out some new futures, they go directly in that channel. So that would be the area that you could just pick up on those and let it rip. So John, I'll be honest with you. I don't think I've ever bet one of your futures. So last year I did a round robin parlay thing for like $50 each in the NBA. And I went and refreshed my account, and the ROI on it was insane, but I needed to definitely add a couple zeros to them. And the reason why I don't is because it's like too long-term mentally for me to tie up money. But I'm going to have a new strategy this year where whatever account I feel like is at the doorstep of like getting clipped, I don't even care if I get worse odds. That's where I'm going to place everything, knowing that I'm still doing a healthy withdrawal from that account at some point soon. And for those bettors that know this happened last year with me when I took the Forks Arizona State to win the Big 12. I got that at 41.0, and I did it on a clipped account. And I had been in the process of withdrawing, you know, literally tens of thousands of dollars, and got another 41,000 sitting in there after it was limited. So I'm going to take that approach next year, more of like a short-term investment, because this would definitely be in the category of like buying stocks. So this would be a very short-term purchase to your futures for next year. But great job.
Thanks. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm going to probably have to take a similar approach, Pace, because I've also been kind of, I haven't bet a lot of John's futures. The only futures I've ever bet from John are the ones that he's mentioned here on the podcast, where we're like, you know, let's get in. And so I'm like, all right, let's ride. I'll ride with the pod, you know, let's go. But yeah, I'm going to have to probably reconsider for next seasons as well. Okay, John, it's the playoffs. What have you got for us?
Yeah, exciting week, an unprecedented week. So this week we have, for the first time ever, 4 home underdogs in the same round of the NFL playoffs. A couple of them are, just underdogs by name only, kind of. So, you know, the Jags and the Bears are on, you know, about a point. You know, if you're getting 1.5, it's juicy. It's minus 120 or so, right, on that spread. So for me, probably just a money line bet on those, but I am taking all of those home underdogs. So I'll give you guys just a high level trend over the last, it's a smaller sample size, but in the last 20 years, there's been 32 home underdogs in the playoffs in the NFL. I'm actually including the Bucs in the Super Bowl in 2021 because, I mean, it was, you know, they played at home. I know there's Chiefs fans, a lot of Chiefs fans there, but you know, that's the NFL these days. When you're playing at home, there's always the other team's fans. So in those 32 games, they are 19, 11, and 2 against the spread. The underdogs are, and I believe when you go 4 points or higher, they're 4-0. So that really only applies to the Panthers this week. Panthers catching double digits at home, which is a wild line. But so the trend is definitely in the favor, and you can understand that, you know, home field advantage amped up a little bit in the playoffs. Also, you're getting the home field for outdoor teams later in the year. You know, you're getting indoor quarterbacks like Matthew Stafford, CJ Stroud going on the road, laying points in cold weather places in the month of January. You know, it's a big factor. And so getting the value on those dogs, taking those points is really good. I think personally that the Jags line, so I already bet the money line a little bit. Haven't called that to our group yet because I think that line is going to keep moving. I think the public is going to find, you know, on Sunday morning that Bills minus 1.5 is an irresistible line. I think they're just not going to be able to not bet it. The public has a ton of say in the lines in the playoffs, especially on the couple of days leading up. So I think a lot of these lines might actually get better. I already bet the Panthers plus 10. I already bet the Bears money line because those are the only ones I could see where there's just too much resistance. I was kind of afraid of getting a worse number. You can't actually get 10.5 on the Panthers at minus 110 right now, even less actually. But kind of, I'm a little surprised by that. But I like all those. And each of those lines individually, I just simply show value on the number. I think the Rams should be -8. I think the Jags and the Bears should both be favored by 2.5. The Steelers is the only one I don't show value on the line. But, if you listen to the podcast last week, it's just Mike Tomlin. He's got a horseshoe up his ass, like they're going to get it just is what it is.
You said it and it came true beyond reason. Like, not that would have mattered. The spread would have still covered, but like you said, sprinkle the money line as well. And that was a horseshoe.
He leads all these, there's a lot of nerd stats out there that we call like luck metrics and stuff. It's like fumbles recovered or like kicks missed that should have, from kicks being missed at distances at a rate that is unlike the rest of the league and stuff like that, like just variance things. Well, he's been coaching for 20 years almost, and he's easily ahead of the next person by a wide margin in almost all of these stats. So at a certain point, I guess it's not luck anymore. There's something about playing for him that makes guys more motivated. They make more plays. They block kicks. They recover fumbles. I don't know. I mean, it just is what it is. So yeah.
Hey,
so
you know what? Got to ride with him.
If you can't beat him, join him. Steelers 56-1 to win the Super Bowl, John.
I know. Wow. It's crazy, right?
That's nuts.
Panthers 200-1.
200-1. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So what? But seriously, what were the Panthers before the season started?
Probably not that much.
Yeah.
Remember the Bengals had a win total of 4.5 when they went to the Super Bowl that year, and they were 250-1. I think was their preseason number, maybe 300-1. The Panthers were projected for 7 wins this year. I mean, they didn't overachieve, 7 or 8 wins. So it couldn't have been that much,
right? I mean, I get the big number. They should be the biggest dog in the fight, right? But it's also crazy to look at the number. So you brought up the Jags. You like their money line.
I do.
I don't want to curse you here because anything I talk about that isn't live betting, especially on this podcast, you could just blindly fade and just dominate, right? I think the Jags are the best team in the NFL.
Okay. Why?
They're on fire. They're peaking at the right time. They've got that swag in the locker room. They've got that sort of underdog, we can beat anyone mindset. And they're just fucking thumping their opponents. Like absolutely thumping their opponents.
But who are they playing? Like, the Titans, the Colts. I mean, in division, it's like I don't know. I mean, to me, I don't think that they're the best team in the NFL. I don't know. Like, I get that they're on fire. I had Trevor Lawrence on my main fantasy team, okay,
right,
as the QB. The guy had a very average season until about the last 3 to 4 weeks, where he really sort of picked it up.
There you go, Shane.
They're absolutely peaking.
Yeah.
Can they, I'm wondering if they're peaking because of the competition they're playing against.
Right. No, it's valid, but I'm just saying, they look really good. And I don't know, there's something going on over there in that locker room. It reminds me of the year Blake Bortles went to the AFC Championship and should have gone to the Super Bowl. Like they look like a really good football team.
Yeah, lost to the Patriots that year.
Now,
right?
I will say I bet the Chargers to win the Super Bowl this morning at 34-1, and I won't be betting I hate betting multiple things. Chargers, I don't know that they're going to win, but the number was just crazy. It's like if you told me right now you bet on the Steelers or the Panthers to win the Super Bowl, I just am not going to argue with you. I'm just going to go, that number is insane. You have to have some money on it.
Right. So you got Chargers 34-1? So you said?
Yeah, I took the Chargers at 34-1. I just think they're the best team in football right now.
The Jags. Doing the Jags. Oh, yeah, I see.
Well, what are the Jags to win it all, Pace? Why didn't you bet the Jags?
So I really think the Jags number is right where you go, this makes sense. It's 17-1, 17.0 plus 1,600.
Okay.
And I think that's kind of where it should be. So you might be like, oh, you just said they're the best team in football, but that means, there's value on them at that number. And I think it's a great number. I think it's exciting. If you told me right now the Jags were playing, the Bills and it was flipped, or a couple of these other teams, I think they'd be a pretty big dog the way the Chargers will be. And I'm getting that number that I want with the Chargers, I guess. And then to counter argument me saying the Jags are amazing and the best team in football, the Chargers have Jim Harbaugh. He's been to Super Bowls before. I think that means something. I know that team hasn't, but the coach at the the helm of it all that's been there, I do think that matters. So yeah, I think he can get them in the right headspace to win. Going back to what you just said, Shane, about strength of schedule, I think the Patriots are insane. I think they deserve every bit of credit that they have, surrounding them, the hype, all that kind of stuff this year. They haven't played a lot of difficult opponents. So do I think the Chargers are going to win this week? Not necessarily. But if they can get through New England, it shows to me that they can beat anybody. And that's at 34-1. I'll take that.
I will I think the Chargers have a much better chance at winning the Super Bowl than the Jags. And if you're getting, twice as better odds or twice as bigger odds on them, sure. I think that's a way better.
Well, it sounds like you're in. Yeah. It sounds like you're in, Shane.
I don't know. I mean, maybe to win the AFC. I might like them to win the AFC. I like that.
Right. It depends on what the odds are. So if them to win the AFC is divided by 2 exactly, then great. If it's not, then I'd take the Super Bowl.
I still, and John, I know you're on Carolina plus 10 there, and I think that's probably a good wager. But I think the Rams are still the best team in football.
Yeah, they've shown us a little shakiness. But
I mean, I think one thing that's really important when you're betting a lot of ugly underdogs is to not conflate the idea that they shouldn't win the game with them covering a number of 10 or 10 and a half. Yeah. A lot of people I'll bet some nasty stuff. Like I bet the Chiefs, plus 13.5 on Christmas. Everybody's like, why you want to ruin your Christmas like that? I'm like, well, I don't think they're going to win the game. They actually had a chance to win that game at the end, but it's, covering 13.5 is a different game. It's a different game you're playing. And also the coaches all know the number, as we've seen multiple weeks this year, field goals as time expires.
LaFleur,
a number.
Right.
LaFleur covered the spread on purpose last week. I usually say this is why you kick. Yeah. And I'll say, if they were down 16, do you think they would have kicked? Well, they did.
Yeah,
they did.
They did.
Yeah. So I will say on the conference betting of the half number. So the assumption by the odds makers is that the NFC winner will be favored, and if not favored significantly over any of those teams. So your AFC odds are going to be much worse than what you'd want for the Super Bowl. So like the Chargers are only 13-1 instead of 35-1 or whatever it is. So, and the Jags are 6-1 instead of 15-1, right? And that's that's because the NFC, there's so many teams that would be favored over almost every team in the AFC.
Sure.
Just right. The opposite of how it normally is.
It's a fun bet. It pays out $60,000. That'll be a great day on the Super Bowl if I'm cheering that in.
Wow. There you go.
Yeah. And it's like also one of those things too. It's kind of what I just said about the future stuff. Had a huge weekend. Take a crack on something for fun with some of the profits. A treat, Shane, if you will.
Treat. Uh-oh. Yeah. Careful. Not too many treats. Christmas is behind us, Pace.
Going back to our mindset episode, we learned what the treat was. This is a treat, Shane.
That was probably the best episode we did in my opinion, in 2025. That was definitely up there as one of the best episodes we did. And I'll just bet, I thought it was fantastic. If anybody hasn't watched it, go back, have a listen, have a look. It really will get you in the right mindset for 2026. And speaking of 2026 Pace, next week, we are going to be looking at ways to win in 2026. That was an excellent episode we did at the beginning of 2025. So we'll be doing something very similar again this year, ways to win in 2026. And if you listen to last week's episode, I think you're going to have at least a hint that the ways to win in 2026 has changed. It's shifted at least. Maybe not entirely changed, but definitely some shifts that we can get into next week. So definitely tune in next week for that episode. John, before we wrap up the grind here, just on the favorites at home, we're talking about Philadelphia against San Francisco and New England against Pace's Chargers. Are you taking anything in those games, or are they just stayaways for you?
Yeah, no, I do really endorse the Chargers futures bets. I've bet some of that myself. I believe the Patriots have played 3 games against teams with winning records this year. They're 1-2. Obviously, the one win was again at the Bills, and then they lost home to the Bills, and they lost to the Steelers. So I think there's a lot of upside there. It is that indoor quarterback going outdoors in cold weather. So it is, I'd rather have the big number than bet the Chargers plus 3.5 in that game. And then in the Eagles game, I do really like the under in that game. I know the 49ers defense is scary of how bad it's been, but I think if there's a team that can fail to take advantage of any of that, it's probably the Eagles. And we've seen the Eagles when these games really matter, when they hunker down, they drain clock like nobody else when they can run the ball. And I think they should be able to gash the Niners on the ground if they commit to that. So I think that clock is just going to tick and tick. So I really like the under. That's under 40. You can get 45 at the time we're recording it. That might still be there. I do think that number is just going to continue to drop. I think it's going to end up around 43.5. It was 46.5. I think it's going to get up 43.5.
I will just say the Niners looked like shit last week, and they definitely have some flaws in their game, but that's another coach that's been there. I know he hasn't won. 14.0 for them to win the NFC right now, and 27.0 to win the Super Bowl. So they have gotten a lot of reverse hype because they got as low. I think we were on the podcast last week. We were talking about them.
Yeah,
they've really, the odds have, I think, disproportionately changed on them. And that's one where it makes more sense to bet them to win the NFC than to win the Super Bowl, because if you're getting better odds essentially if you cap the Super Bowl as a flip, which is John said he thinks the NFC team will be favored, but we don't know that the Niners.
The Niners, I'm not sure. The odds are assuming it's either the Seahawks or the Rams, right?
Right.
The Rams have the same odds as the Seahawks, and they have to play another game.
Every game on the road. Another game and every game on the road.
That's a hilarious one. That I want to go bet no on Kalshi on that one.
And the thing is like, speaking of a no, like to win AFC, the Broncos are 3.4. And I know it's 2 home games for them to get there. And I know that has appeal to it, but there's something wrong with that team. If they get it done, I'll eat my words. But there's something wrong with that team for how good they are being the 1 seed. There's something wrong with that team.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of close games. I think they were like 11-2 in 1-score games, which means they played like 13 1-score games or something crazy like that.
But again, another coach that's been there that has won. And that stuff matters.
That matters.
Really
that matters.
Yeah.
Yeah. Big time.
Yeah.
Big time.
Yeah.
All right. Great stuff here, guys. Okay. New year, new segment. Carrots and sticks, where we're going to be looking at bad beats and maybe even some wins for the good guys in games or bets that probably should have lost. So, that happens too. We tend to remember, I think, the bad beats more frequently, but we also have some of those that just, they look completely dead and then boom, they win and come through for us. So we'll spend some time looking at some of these, all born pace out of your McNichols really bad beat that we shared on the show several weeks ago now. But it got a lot of reaction, a lot of interest, and it seems like people like to hear about these things. So why don't we cover them? Because we've got no shortage of them at In Play Live. Like these things they happen, and they happen, I don't want to say daily, but, weekly for sure. We've got multiple bad beats that we can talk about. So I'm even just thinking about one yesterday. So we're recording this on Tuesdays, thinking about Monday night, Detroit Red Wings that just completely screwed us. Like the most empty net goal, just couldn't put it in the net, but whatever. That's one that we could easily highlight in this segment. But Pace, you've got a few that maybe you wanted to bring up.
Well, no, here's the thing, Shane. I brought up the McNichols story of my worst beat that I've ever had in my life. And we posted it to socials and it blew up overnight. What I love about it is it inspired a lot of people to tell me all their bad beats that some say are worse than mine, or some are just sharing theirs. And there's a really common theme amidst the bad beats of, let's call it the general public, even though our who saw this might not adequately represent that. But I'm just going to read a couple of people's bad beats that they sent through under our reel on Instagram. I needed 12 passing yards from Lawrence in the fourth quarter. They had 3 possessions. He didn't throw the ball. It's like, well, dude, they were probably winning.
They were up 30 plus points or something. Yeah.
Right. So in his mind, that's a terrible beat. But a lot of the bad beats that come up in here, I guess, our knowledge of ball, they just make total sense. So we actually had this come up on stream this week, where someone saw that a quarterback that is not a rushing quarterback had a covering line for his rushing yards. So he had rushed for 5 yards in the game already. I don't know which quarterback this was, but it was a luggy, Phillip Rivers type quarterback. a Matt Stafford type. He'd already run for 5 yards in the game. They were the winning team. And his rushing line was 4.5.
I know where this is going.
So he says, hammer this line in our chat. It's already covering. And I see someone say something like this a few times every season.
Yeah.
But they're probably going to take at least one kneel in that game.
Yeah.
So if I go through this here on Instagram of everyone else's bad beats, I had over 5K, and the last leg was Josh Allen for 32 rushing yards. He had 34, and he took 3 knees, and I lost. There's one of them. If I keep scrolling, it doesn't take long at all before Mahomes went under his rushing yards kneeling out on the Super Bowl. That one really hurt me. Someone shares his fantasy loss. Jalen Hurts threw 4 interceptions to have negative points for the game. And if he had played no quarterback, he would have won his fantasy league.
No, wow, that's a tough one. That's a rough one.
That is funny. Oh man,
that's a bad beat. I had the last leg of my Lamar Jackson have 15 rushing yards. He had 16 rushing yards with 5 minutes left. They got the ball back, and the guy kneels out. I couldn't believe it.
Couldn't believe it.
So there's another one.
Couldn't believe it.
Yeah, but there's people are sharing their NBA beats. There's all these ones, but there's a real theme of people thinking a quarterback kneeling out is an incredibly bad beat. But anyways, this inspired the new segment. We have so many bad beats at In Play Live that we don't even talk about, and we relive highlights and we taste our losses again and again. But it goes both ways.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And I mean, hey, another one, the Steelers Ravens game. I mean, we should have lost. We should have lost the Steelers. 100% should have lost the Steelers. And hey, we came away winners. At least on the money line, we should have lost.
Right,
the spread would have covered no matter what.
People rationalize things, and I could rationalize that 2 ways. If the Ravens had a kicked and won, it was a horrible beat for us, because of the fact that we missed the PAT in an equally shanky fashion.
Yeah, that's true.
Right? Where we would have gone to overtime, right? Had he have made it and still lived to fight another day. But sometimes you have to put the past in the past and then deal with what is now there. So because we had such a monster week at In Play Live on Carrots and Sticks this week, I don't want to share a bad beat. I want to share 3 different stories of 3 immaculate wins. Okay,
let's hear it.
And the reason why is because last week was one of those immaculate wins, and I don't think it's as improbable of a win as the first 2 that I'm going to share. Okay, we have Appalachian State on the money line. Okay, they are down 10 points. They score a touchdown to go down 3 points. There's like a minute 10 left in the game, and Appalachian State has no timeouts. Mario Cristobal gets the ball back, and he can take 2 kneels and end the game. They fumble the football, and Appalachian State throws a Hail Mary to win. There's no greater win than we have ever had in our lives than Mario Cristobal not kneeling out and losing the game. Okay? Similar fashion.
We have Miami. That was Georgia Tech.
Oh, sorry, Georgia Tech. I'm thinking Appalachian State because Appalachian State was the one where they threw the Hail Mary for us to win, and then they kicked the ball back and give a kickback TD for us to lose. Yeah. Okay, so that was actually a bad beat, but sorry, I apologize. That was Georgia Tech.
Sorry to keep interrupting, but the App State one was UNC. We had a plus. They scored a Hail Mary, kicked onside, and the guy ran it in.
Right.
He ran in the onside kick. Yeah.
Right. We went from like total euphoria to just like absolute gut punch. Anyways, that Georgia Tech win should have never happened. It's the most improbable win I've ever had in my life by far. Okay. The next one is similar. We have Miami Dolphins first half -6.5 against the New York Jets. The Miami Dolphins get the ball back with 35, 40 seconds left in the half. They're up 7 with the ball. They can take 1 knee and we win our bet. Tua throws a pick 6 on the first play. So we lose our bet, right? No, they get the ball back. He throws a pick again. And the Jets have the opportunity to get a Hail Mary to take the lead in the half. The half's now like 14-14 or 7-7. The Jets throw the Hail Mary. Miami run the Hail Mary out of the end zone. and score a touchdown to end the half on a pick six on a Hail Mary for us to win Miami first half
on the
-6.5.
first half bet too. Like the Hail Mary alone is just like, what are you doing here?
So again, it's one of these ones where it's like the bet's won. You're counting your carrots and sticks, and you throw a pick six, and it's like, are you fucking kidding me? And then we got a pick six back on a Hail Mary. It was just unbelievable. That highlight gets shown quite a bit. Now, both of those wins are far more improbable than the one from this last week, but it's kind of nuts. So we had the Iowa Hawkeyes in their last bowl game against Pavia and what team is that? Your alma mater, John? Vandy. So we have -6.5 for the first half, and we have over 16.5 for the first half. The score is 7-3. We don't have the football, and there's 40 seconds left in the half. Vanderbilt is punting. So Vanderbilt punts the football to Iowa State, and they're just going to kneel out. The half's going to end. That's the way that game is going to go. We've lost both bets. They're dead. So the Vanderbilt punter gets the ball on 4th and 27. He starts running to try to get a first down because he thinks he sees daylight. Then he's crossed the line of scrimmage.
So he's going.
And he sees he can't get there. So he punts. So he punts the football. Well, he's past the line of scrimmage.
So he still decides, I'll just kick it.
So this results in a loss of down. So which means it's now Iowa Hawkeyes ball from the point of the line of scrimmage plus a 5-yard penalty for punting the football. If you look at what this thing says in the play-by-play, it says Vanderbilt punter commits a 53-yard penalty. And it's the Hawkeyes ball, 1st and goal, with 40 seconds left to end the half.
Oh,
we still need a touchdown
either. So
we still need a touchdown. It's 1st and goal from the 10, and Iowa throws a back shoulder fade, contested. Tight end jumps up, reins it in, over winner, first half cashes. One of the most improbable wins of my life. But anyways, because we had such a big week, I wanted to focus on 3 big wins. So there they are.
There they are. Wow, that's a great one. That Iowa one is just like totally improbable.
Yeah.
You
But
had
good stuff, nonetheless.
No business winning that bet, but there you go. Put it on the tracker.
Anyways, for this segment going forward, I think that I took up a lot of time there. We definitely want to go over individually a couple of the things that, quote, happened to us. And I think it calls for good story time.
Absolutely. Great stuff there. And if anybody wants to share their bad beats, share them with us. Put them in the comments, reach out on the socials, all those things. Everybody out there, come on. We know you've got them, so share them with us, and maybe we'll feature them here in the segment or something like that. So there we go. Okay, moving on. I mentioned off the top of the show that we're going to have a guest on talking about fraud in sports betting, and he's coming up in just a few minutes. But before we get to it, I want to bring up another case here of potential fraud or alleged fraud involving our favorite sports betting rapper. So we're talking about Drake, of course, here. And it also involves live streamer Aiden Ross. They've been accused in a U.S. civil case of using online casino money at stake to pay for automated streams. So we're talking about bots to pump up their stream numbers, to artificially inflate them and get more royalties and all of that. So the lawsuit alleges Stake paid Drake $100 million a year and provided free gambling credit to him. So this is what the lawsuit alleges. Pace, we've talked about that here on the show before, bringing up the suspicions of that, not just with Drake, but with other influencers and celebrities out there possibly being paid by the sports books to go and make these big wagers and then share them and, make it seem like they're betting their own money and all that kind of stuff when, in fact, they're not. They're betting money that was given to them by the sports book. And so that's what this lawsuit's essentially alleging. And then he takes that money, and I guess, Pace, I don't use Stake being here in Ontario, but I guess you've used it pretty frequently. And I know many people out there have used Stake quite a bit, but I guess you can do like some anonymous tipping to people. and it has this sort of function that allows you to tip people anonymously. Well, I guess what the lawsuit alleges is that Drake was then taking this money and providing these anonymous tips to people like Ross and some Australian guy who runs like a whole bot factory, and would then pay them that way through these anonymous tips from Stake. So he's taking the money given to him by Stake, and then using it to pump up his numbers through this anonymous tipping. And again, all of this allegations hasn't been proven in court. Don't come and sue us. but this is what's out there. What do you guys think?
Well, Shane, it was like episode 8 or 4 of our podcast where we were sitting here with a photo of Drake, and I said, don't believe everything that you see. The money he's playing with isn't real. Since then, I have been approached by a sports book. I'm not going to say their name, where they asked me to make gambling content for them. It had to be casino play. It could not be sports betting.
So you would have lost everything anyway.
Yeah. No, but hear me out. They were going to pay me a very, very nice amount of money. Like, I'm not talking tens of thousands, but a very nice amount of money to post on a weekly basis for them. And the content that I posted would be me gambling in a casino on their site. And they openly told me that they would be using money that appears to be real, right? That isn't. And that the odds would be in my favor. So it would show me winning more often.
Oh, wow. Okay. So they would rig it for you.
Shane, on top of that, if you remember, we had Nigel Eccles on our show, former FanDuel CEO co-founder. Or whatever, co-founder and owner of BetHog. And I remember the moment that he popped on and I made fun of the chats on the live streams and on the side of sports books. And he said, they are real.
Right. Yes.
They are not real. Okay. And I have a story where I was on a website and what I was trying to do was funnel the money out of that site because I knew I wasn't going to get paid by them. And I was trying to figure out which live roulette wheels matched that same website so that I could try to cover the board and pick heavy favorites in obscure scenarios to slowly move money every single day, which is a strategy that I don't want to get into right now and I don't recommend.
Don't do this at home.
But the point is that live chat was going ballistic. And I was like, okay, I know what site I'm on right now, but I know these people are not on this site because no one in the world is on this fucking site that I'm on right now. So I messaged in the chat over and over again. Where are you guys playing? What site are you guys playing on? Can anyone please tell me where they're playing? And no one would respond to me ever. And it's because my messages are being lost in this slew of fake bots, making it look like everyone's gambling and winning. And it also keeps showing people tipping the dealers and shit, like over and over, as if I should be tipping too then, right? So there's a whole system in front of our eyes, and it's like Matrix-esque. And Drake is a big part of it, whether it's legitimate. I think Portnoy does a lot of legitimate betting, and he's one of the guys we brought up on that episode as well. But now he's in a position where regardless of what he's doing legitimately betting or illegitimately, he's extremely and heavily funded by the sports books, regardless of if his play is credits or real or whatever.
Yeah.
Right? So we as consumers, whether it's betting or not, have to have remarkable levels of clarity when it comes to the things that we are looking at. And that transcends the betting universe. It's the scams that are out there. It's the AI stuff that looks like it's completely real now. And the list goes on. And don't say this is fake automatically, but just question things in a productive and constructive way. So a guy like Drake that has this remarkable amount of influence, not only is he lying to us and playing with fake money that he can't win, he's tipping anonymous people to boost up like some record shit.
Like his stream numbers aren't real either. It's all fake.
To make him look more famous? Like, come on. What a pile of horse shit.
Yeah, it's pretty sad, pretty pathetic, if true. And you know what?
It's true.
He's probably not, he's definitely far from the only one doing this kind of thing in the
100%.
music world, in the, in the movies and everything. Everybody's trying to use bots to their advantage. And maybe we'll talk about bots next week when we talk about 2026 and ways to win. So it could come up there. All right, guys. Well, like I said, fraud is the main topic with our guest. Let's bring him in. Terry Rich is a retired lottery CEO. He's the author of 2 books, The $80 Billion Gamble and Dare to Dream, Dare to Act. He also led the investigation into the biggest lottery scam in U.S. history. He's now a public speaker, and he's also on the front line of fraud prevention in betting, gambling, gaming. Terry, welcome to the show.
Nice to be here. Thanks for the invitation.
Really excited to have you on here. Our audience of sports bettors closely follows all the betting scandals we've seen in professional and college sports over the past few years. You're looking at this very closely. What do you think we're in store? What's in store for 2026? Is this going to get better or worse, and why?
Well, after 15 years of uncovering this large scam, I think that the size and the growth of sports betting has really been exponential. And I think we're in for a rough ride in finding out. And we like sports betting. People like sports betting. People love to bet. They always have. But the key here is I don't see enough from the top management standpoint that when something happens, that 1, they catch it, and 2, they crack down and do discipline right away. And I think there's so much that can happen. And of course, the expansion, if you were just betting on, will this team win or that team win, I wouldn't be too worried. But now you've got all of the thing with prop bets where you can bet whether I'm going to blink 20 times, or the guy's going to kick 3 field goals or 5 field goals. And now you're getting prediction markets like Kalshi and Poly Market where you can bet on virtually anything. That opens it up because when you're dealing with money, and I think we're talking, between 90 and $100 billion that'll be spent, North America here in the next year, and then way up 2 or 3 times that in the next 3 or 4 years. Money causes greed.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that you brought up the prediction markets. Also, don't call it betting, right?
Right. But yet it brings the same clientele. It brings the same people that, they've tried it and they won. And, there's no doubt that the house always wins. The house is the one that puts all this together and takes the risk to decide what the odds are and that sort of thing. But they take a cut for that. And that's why the prediction markets are a different deal, because that's people in the home and all of the money goes back and forth depending on who wins. But the chances of fraud in these are phenomenal. I can watch any football game, and every time I see a missed field goal, I see a coach who didn't send somebody in when they had the best player on the bench. All of those just ring bells to me. And we just don't have the right number of people that are overseeing it. And the people that are overseeing it are probably paid $90,000, maybe $100,000 if they're lucky. And yet you've got $1 million players who are out there, if they want to rig it, that are saying, hey, I may be able to do this and make a little more. So what do you watch for in sports betting? You watch for the first year players who aren't making much. They can make a little more. Maybe they don't think they're going to make the big time. So they might throw a game to be able to make a little more. Or the end players, the people who are retiring. They may want that one last big shot before they leave. And of course, referees in the middle of it all are also ones that have been known in the frauding industry, because all they got to do is call a penalty here or there to be able to rig a game. But in all of my research, I'll tell you that the 2 biggest sports of betting, what do you think they are?
Oh, well, the NFL has to be at the top of the list there.
How about on fraud? What do you think they are?
CFL.
Soccer and tennis.
Okay.
And why is that? Because you're talking one person sport. Only one person has to make a critical decision on whether you want to miss a ball, hit a ball, do the right things. If you bet on something, you can make an outcome pretty easy, as can the referee. And that's why those have particularly been viewed at. But all of a sudden, you've seen it in baseball. Do I throw a ball or do I throw a strike? And people are betting on these prop bets. Well, what the heck is going on? And I've got my buddy betting over here, and he's going to give me half of it when it's done so I can do what I want to do. And that is really concerning and scary. And I just don't hear the leaders, the head of the NFL or the head of the team itself, say, we're going to do everything we can to make the game fair and honest, because It's okay. What people say, what does it hurt if they throw a game here or there? It hurts you, the player, and we've got to make it fair and honest. And you got to keep demanding that these games are looked at, and there are people watching all this stuff.
I'm surprised you didn't list political espionage as the number one most rigged thing, because we just saw the $400,000 payout on Polymarket for the Maduro
for the Venezuelan deal, man. I mean, think about that. Doesn't that just stink that someone on the inside knew they were going to attack, whether it was a serviceman or somebody in the Department of Defense? Why do people steal? I mean, you think about it, you've got to watch, and this is what we watch for. The Fraud Association of America talks about there are three things. Number one, they need money, which means, and that's usually a divorce. They got over their head in betting, they gamble, they drugs, booze, whatever. So now you have a desire. I got to get more money. That's the first, but they can't do that fraud until they have opportunity. And of course, a place kicker has pretty good opportunity. Quarterback has pretty good. The coach and the owner all have pretty good opportunities. And finally, rationale. At what point does that little devil on your shoulder say, look, the guy across the line here, other quarterbacks making 20 million more than I am. I deserve it. So I'm going to bet on this game and make the money himself to show him that I'm worth it if that person is. So when those three combine, and that's why you got to have the checks and balances and people looking at things. So they say, I could do this, but they're watching. This person over here got busted. I'm not going to do that because I'll lose everything. And you'll lose your reputation. And that's really what hurts to most of these folks.
Yeah. I love that you brought up a place kicker because we just watched a kicker miss a field goal in the Ravens-Steelers game to win the game right at the end. Should be a chip shot field goal for that kicker and just completely shanked it.
So who watches that person? Who's going to investigate that? That's the tough part. The casinos themselves, if you're gambling most places, that goes through a casino organization. A lot of it funnels right back to Las Vegas where the bookmakers are. Who's actually watching that? And what do they have to gain one way or the other if they say something? Now with the ChatGPT or any of the AI stuff, they can usually see if somebody's really betting a lot more than normal for an obscure bet, and it happens. They kind of take a look, but we never really hear who's the oversight. And do we want the government to be the oversight? I don't know. I think in most of it, I think the government's good to have oversight, but the real oversight should be from the head of the league who says, by God, we're going to check this, and has people. And when somebody does something wrong, if they get busted, they get charged and they get fired. And what if you just kick a whole team out of a league? How fast would that straighten out the whole league? Pretty fast. And the only reason you should do that is because if we're going to have betting, the player needs to have an equal chance with all of them who can do the rigging.
Well, I think sometimes there's this discussion of, you kind of alluded to the balls and strikes and some of the props that we can bet on, right? So there's this discussion of potentially getting rid of that kind of stuff. But I don't think that that's a valid approach, because whether it is effective in the short term or not, I've been betting much longer than the regulated markets existed. And all that stuff was here long before it was regulated in the United States. You could bet balls and strikes in Sweden if you wanted to on the MLB, right? So especially with the rise of the prediction markets, we're going to see the trend of offshore betting and these prediction markets pick up what was once there if there's a market for it. So that leads back to what you just said. The discipline needs to come from the leagues themselves, especially if the leagues are having these partnerships with these major sports books, right? Mm-hmm. That puts them in a position to share information. And who's at risk in these spots, right? Like the sports books are obviously the ones that can get cracked pretty hard in a position like that. And they're the ones that see, like, why the hell did all this money just come in this spot, right? So if that information's shared, that's where obviously you can have, and that's why we have seen, right? Like so many more things in the media with some of these even prosecutions, right? In the case of like the Portland Trailblazers and whoever that was on the Lakers that was sharing information about LeBron. But yeah, like Chauncey Billups isn't in the league. I don't know if he's still getting paid right now, though. I've heard some things about him still getting NBA salaries.
They had to hang him. They had to put him right in, a football player. They had to put him right in the end zone and let everybody go tackle him once. has to stand there naked. And you got to do something to really stand out. Make no mistake, I'm exactly happy for you to be able to do sports betting. I don't want anything completely banned, but somehow there's got to be a little regulation so not any Tom, Dick, or Harry can put something on the internet and let you put money on it and take your money. See, you're an expert, and in that you research it, you understand all of this, you're watching all this, but the poor schmuck who sees how other people have won down the street gets on and tries to bet and they have no understanding of odds or whether the over under is this or that. Somehow they're the ones that get taken advantage of because, it's back to the basics of gambling. Gamble with only what you can lose. I always say when I go to a craps table, if I take $100, $1,000, I put it on, it's got to be money I can lose, number one. And if I lose it during that time, I don't reach back in my money. I don't go out and borrow money. So I got to pay it back down the road because that's how you get killed by the organized crime syndicates that are trying to get you going. You try to bet with only what you can lose, and you might win. But every gambling organization takes a piece of it. It's not 100% of the people are going to win, except theoretically for these poly markets and some of those because they don't have a third party. But they come with a whole different kind of risk. So, yeah, it's all good and all going strong, but it's exploding so fast. Someone's got to get their arms around who's in charge of the oversight. And if you don't have oversight, you're going to have fraud.
Yeah. I love that you brought up like the average person sort of down the road, because those are the majority of bettors out there. It's not Pace and I, it's not many people in our audience, would identify themselves as sort of being in the top sort of 1%, 2% of bettors out there that are long-term winning bettors. Because, we spend a lot of time at this and work at it and sort of, have a lot of safe practices in there and that kind of thing. But what advice would you give to the average recreational bettor out there that, doesn't want to be scammed or feel like they're being scammed? Because we see a ton of it on social media. This game was rigged. That game was rigged. This moment was rigged. And it sounds
who's
like
saying it? The people who lost.
The people who lost.
I think that the typical person is those of you that we call them whales in the lottery industry, those of you that spend a lot of money and do a lot of time, probably have lost a lot when you've won a lot. You don't really tell me how much you've lost, but you'll tell me how much you've won. And so, to the others, you're betting and hoping that all of the other people who don't know all the statistics and didn't do the research that you work hard to do to win, you've got a little bit more of an advantage, but that's not illegal. That's just part of gambling. That's part of where we're at. It's just the proliferation has grown so fast. It's just, and when we went through ours, we saw it. It was one instance. It was a big one, but it took us 6 years to prosecute that thing, and lawyers all over the place. I think the big winners in all of this comes up to lawyers. If that football player has done fraud, that football player is going to sue. If they get fired, they get kicked out. They're going to hire a lawyer to sue and then they're going to settle down the road. They're going to try to keep it quiet because they want people to be able to come to the games and still bet. And remember, if you're in the seat paying $400 a ticket, you're betting that your team's going to win in its own way, right? You don't get any money back, you get entertainment. So if you think of entertainment as what you're doing with gambling and you spend the $100 or $500, that same amount of money to bet, as long as you use it as entertainment money and you lose, that's okay. You got some out of it, but don't bet. We always said, bet with your head, not over your head.
Yeah. Great advice there. I'm glad you brought up the lawyers because there's another aspect of fraud in this space. And Pace, you've paid some money to some lawyers recently, significant amount of money.
I spent over $600,000 to solve this case.
Yeah,
but you know what? Here's the lesson I'm going to tell you. Go ahead and you were making a point. Make a point.
No, I got to ask you because there's fraud on the other side as well. And when I'm talking about Pace having to pay lawyers, it's so that he can get his money from sportsbooks that don't want to pay. And so there's fraud taking place on the other side of the counter as well. How much of that are you seeing?
Well, anytime you've got someone who feels they've been unjustly charged, lawyers step in. And as I mentioned, we spent almost $600,000 on ours. But you know what happened? And this is probably the lesson for the owners or the league chairs or the coaches. When we solved this case, every time we got on, I had a lot of counterparts that said, "Shut up! You're screwing with our money. we were $100 billion industry, $80 billion industry. And if we would, the little state that we were in, if we'd have messed this up and we ruined the reputation, they would have lost their money, probably lost their jobs. But every time we got on and we said, we're going after this, we're going to do everything we can to solve this, and here's what would happen, and keep people informed, we sold more tickets. The lottery industry went from an $80 billion industry to a $110 billion industry. That's about what the sports industry is selling right now itself. So I think that they actually need to learn the lesson, and it's a lot cheaper to stop it now, and you'll get more income because people will enjoy it, and it's true. You are true, fair, and honest in your deal. You're going to bet more than to go through all the lawyers and everything else as you go through that to just say, let's just shut up because we need this money, especially if a government agency's in it. They all need money. Just shut up. Don't say anything. Just pay it. Nobody, who does it hurt? Well, it does hurt the little person.
Right.
Yeah. Do you kind of, is enough being done to prevent fraud on that side of the counter? Do you find that the regulators out there are doing enough to protect the little guy and to make sure that they get paid? Or, for some of us who are betting and winning, we face limits, right? And I'm sure you've come across the limiting winners and that kind of thing. What do you think about that? And do you think the regulators generally are doing enough in this area?
Well, think about this. How did you get gambling legalized anyway? You had casinos and sports books paying legislators money to run for office, and those that favored making it looser and bigger and better for betting, that's who they would support with their money. And they have all that money that they make to do that. Are they going to put a lot more emphasis on that? So it is a tough one, because how do you really, and again, that regulator that's going into the multi-million-dollar players, coaches, and team owners is supposed to say, you did wrong and you should fire, is probably making $50,000, $60,000, $70,000. And ultimately, You'll see those sports books and everybody else hiring those same people because they know how to get around all the regulations. I don't have an easy answer for that, and it's got to be the players themselves that just quit playing. If they quit playing or they object, say, we're not doing this anymore, coming to your game anymore, that's when it turns around.
Terry, one last question before we let you go here. What's your number one piece of advice to sports bettors as we enter 2026?
Play with your head, not above your head. When you play with money, have money you can lose, and when you lose it, walk away and call it, well, I saw a game today and the team lost. I played today, I lost. I'm going to come back, but it's only going to be with money I can play with. And you can kind of see our whole story of why we did what we did and how it took 7 years to bust that largest lottery fraud. If you want to watch, there was a documentary recently done, just hit 1 million views, which is one of the largest views on YouTube, at lottodoc.com, LOTTODOC.com. And it'll show you kind of the frustration we have as regulators and how this guy got away with the fraud, but ultimately got caught, and nobody wants to sit in a prison somewhere.
Wow, sounds fascinating. Have to check that out. Terry, how can people connect with you if they want to, reach out to you, keep up to speed on the work you're doing? What can they do? TerrySpeaks.com. Terry at TerrySpeaks.com. TERRY at TerrySpeaks.com is how to get a hold of me. TerrySpeaks.com is my website with everything. And lottodoc.com is the website, and the documentary itself, and that'll give you a lot of information too. But man, you guys are having fun. I can tell that by looking in your eyes. I love it. I love the podcast. Always, Terry. Really appreciate you coming on the show. Thanks so much. All right. And Pace, John, Terry, sports bettors around the world. Till next week. Keep beating those books. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Behind the Lines. Remember to like, download, and subscribe. We are on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and everywhere you get your podcasts. Have a betting story or want to be featured on our podcast? Drop a note in the comments below. And if you want to join in Play Live, use promo code Behind the Lines.